Well, I figured I was going to take the headstock assembly apart after all, because it's going to be a lot easier for me to clean that if I reduce it to some components, and it'd also be less of a chance of me breaking something if I take some of the stuff that's sticking out off of it, like this cover. But I just took the 2 screws out that hold this cover on, and this cover doesn't want to come off because this gear is in the way. So I took off the nut, and then there's a thick washer and then a large washer on this gear, but the gear is not coming off, so I think I need a puller on that. Must be pressed onto that shaft. And I can't take the cone pulley assembly and the spindle all out because I got to take the caps off, and then it's still not going to clear this cover. So it all starts with that gear, apparently. Alright, I'm kind of in tight quarters here, but as soon as I get this apart, I should be able to maybe move this out of here and get it up on the table. So the gear pulled off pretty easily with the gear puller. Once the gear was off, I was able to take off the guard, and then this intermediate gear right here, the one that has a little fancy handle on it to shift in and out to disengage the spindle from the rest of the drivetrain, that gear just slid off once the cover was off. But interesting thing about this is the shaft that rides on is wiggling, and I'm thinking that's probably not supposed to do that, and I'm not quite sure how that's in there yet. I'll have to examine that closer in a moment. Now I've taken the big screws out that hold the bearing caps on, but the bearing caps aren't just popping right off, and I didn't expect they would. Imagine they're on there pretty good. And let's see, I'm just gonna give them a little tap with my lead mallet on the side. Figure if I put something in there to keep that space open and then tap on the other side, that might make it pop free. There's no shim stock in here between the bearing caps. So how heavy is this spindle? Oh, not bad at all. Relatively speaking. See all this dirt and everything down in here would be pretty difficult to get out with that spindle in place. With the spindle removed, it's going to make my life a lot easier cleaning wise. Now this is the back gear assembly, and I noticed that this lathe has something going on, because I noticed when I would engage the back gear, when I was testing this lathe when I was first buying it at in the guy's garage, I noticed it kept creeping out. This handle would creep out. Looking at it now, I can see that there is this hole right here. When this is in engaged, there's a hole on the shaft that lines up with this hole, and so it seems to me like it would just be a matter of sticking a pin in there the right size, a little metal dowel or something in there the right size, and that would keep it locked in. The question is that what they intended? And where would that pin be stored when it wasn't being used? See, I thought it might have like a ball and a spring and a detent or something that would have it be able to click in and stay clicked in until you gave it a little bit of force to pop it out, but maybe it was something just more antiquated, like I just said, a simple pin in there. These arms are part of the casting, so I can't take one of these arms off if I wanted to. So to remove this is going to be a non-concentric type of shaft or something that allows this to move the gear in and out when I rotate this. So I'm sure there's a way to get that out. Just don't know if I want to go through the trouble of taking it out. There's another oil cup here, or a little cap. I wonder where that goes. Well, I flipped the whole unit over so we could take a look at the gearing here and how this works. You've got that lever that is to the right of the apron, and that apron's got that lever's got three positions. Middle is neutral, and then up and down. And what that does is that rotates a shaft on the front there of the bed that goes into the quick change gearbox, and actually it doesn't connect to the quick change gearbox, it just kind of goes through that area. It engages another lever that eventually takes a brass shoe that goes in this groove right here and moves this dog. It's kind of like a clutch dog. Middle would be, of course, neutral. This is key to that shaft, which is this output shaft on the end here. Okay, so that's key to the shaft. And when it's in the middle, neither of these gears, which are driven by this outer gear right here, neither of those gears is engaging that. So it's neutral. And then what happens is when you flip that lever in one direction, it will shift over to here, which will then cause this gear to drive the dog. So you'll notice that when I move this gear clockwise, looking at this end, that the shaft is moving clockwise. But we flip the lever the other way so that this dog goes all the way down here. What happens now is when this gear is driven, this bevel gear transfers the power or the drive through this bevel gear to this bevel gear on the other side, which is now going in the opposite direction. So now you'll notice that when I turn this outer gear still clockwise, now my shaft is driving counterclockwise. Now this lathe was made just after the turn of the century, early 1900s, probably around 1916 we figure, and they had already figured this out, which is kind of neat, because if you look at this setup, this is basically how a lot of your smaller horsepower outboard motors, how the outdrives work. In other words, this shaft right here would be the prop shaft, have the prop on it, and then you've got a clutch dog in here that moves back and forth like this, and that's how it shifts from forward to reverse. And this bevel gear would be, I think on those usually this bevel gear is the driven one, and it's driven the shaft coming down from the motor, from the power head, would actually go right into here and drive this. And so what happens is both of these gears are always running. And then depending on which way the clutch dog goes, it's going to decide whether your prop's going forward or backwards. So I thought that was kind of cool, so I thought I'd take a few minutes to show that. And I want to clean that up really well, that's for sure. So tonight I've been down here working on cleaning some stuff for the Vernon lathe and the parts washer. One of the things that I got down here and was on the floor in my way was this big bracket. This is the big bracket that goes on the back of the bed, bolts to the back of the bed, and actually supports the platform for the motor and the 4-speed transmission. So I decided to clean this up, and I'm going to put this off to the side. I can't bolt this on right now because when this is bolted onto the back of the bed, it actually covers a hole that a shaft goes through, and that shaft actually is what part of the linkage for the changing of direction mechanism works on. And so I've got to be able to take that rod out and put that all together. So can't put this on right now. Plus, I haven't got the lathe moved into my final position yet anyways, and I want to probably get at least closer to the wall before I have this thing, because this is going to kind of be sticking up. But cleaned up pretty nicely. Again, I'm not going to bother painting it, but I did discover, interestingly enough, there's a little plate. It looks like a plate. Yeah, it's painted over, but there's a little plate with a number on it affixed to this, and it looks like it says 262-106, and it was definitely not, it's not in the casting, it's definitely something that was added on. So I don't know if that's like a part number for just this bracket, because of course the lathe, without this bracket on there, the lathe could be used on an overhead line shaft in a factory situation. But then if you wanted to use it in a tool room situation or something like that, then you would want this was the optional motor. And I found it's funny, I found so little on the internet regarding Vernon lathes, and then just the other day I found something that I hadn't stumbled across previously. So I don't know if it's something fairly new, but it's another one of these Google books, and I forgot what the name of that book is, but in that book there's one page, it's an advertisement from a company, a machinery company, not the Vernon company, but a company that sells machines that must have been acting as a dealer for the Vernon lathes. And there's a picture of my lathe in there. I mean, spit an image of it. And it goes on to say in the ad, talks about the lathe and says it was available in 12 and 14-inch size. And talks about that it's also available with electric motor or, I forgot how they termed it, but basically they were saying you could either get it for line shaft operation or an electric motor. And that publication was dated 1921. So I know because of corporation filing papers and that, I kind of estimated that it was we were somewhere around 1916. But it looks like those lathes were still around until 1921. And who knows, maybe by that point, maybe the company had ceased operation, and maybe they were just, maybe the inventory was sold to this machinery company, and they were just unloading what they had for production. That was already, lathes that were already built. Hard to say. But the only other, the stuff that I found reference to a Vernon lathe earlier than that, it was a picture of a lathe that didn't look anything like mine. It was an earlier looking lathe that didn't even have a quick change gearbox on it. So I'm going to try and include that photograph in this video. I'll probably put it at the end. I don't know, I'm deciding if I'll put it here or I'll put it at the end. But anyways, I got this cleaned up. So I get this out of the way for now, because I need to move my shop crane over there so I can get that headstock. I'll probably get the headstock onto my rolling, my little rolling platform there, roll it over here to where the shop crane is, so I don't have to wheel the shop crane too much.
But anyways, can't quite make out for sure, but it looks like that might be a 200-106. Now that I look at it, it could be 280. It doesn't matter because I don't think in a million years I would get lucky enough that that number would actually Google and come back as something. So the other thing I cleaned so far this evening are the half nut components here. And I had mentioned that when I was taking this apart, I had noticed something here that looked to me almost like a oil hole. Oil might go down in there and then come through this here, but it turns out that's a grub screw, and now that I got the hole cleaned out I can see the slotted head. So there's actually a screw in here that hits. There's a little tiny mark right there where it hits every time these close, and I'm wondering if that grub screw is some way to adjust for wear. In other words, you know, maybe back the screw out a little bit and these will close further down on the, but that doesn't really make sense though. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, because you well, I guess that would work, but the more you close this down, the less round this hole gets, so I don't know how well that would work. But it kind of begs the question, what purpose does that serve? So here it is right there. You can see this little grub screw sticking out right there, and it's adjustable through that hole right there. And you can see on this one there's even a faint mark right there where it's been hitting. So every time this was closed, that little grub screw would tap that little thing there and over time made a little mark. But I still don't know what the purpose of that is. This was loaded with dirt and grease. So I think that somebody was using grease instead of oil. This actually has a number right on it, 25. 25 on both of these, so I don't know if that's, you know, supposed to be a part number. But the other thing I noticed about these castings are really rough. I'm surprised at how rough these castings are. Now, maybe that's not unusual for a lathe of this vintage. Maybe somebody who knows more about castings might be able to comment and tell me about this, but this seems really rough to me, but maybe that's just how, I'm assuming this would be like a sand casting that was used to make this. And there's also almost like tooling marks, like from a scraper or something. It almost looks like after the casting was done that maybe some hand scraping or something was done to clean it up. Here's the area here that was milled out so that you could have better access to, well, it looks like they milled that out so they could have a flat right here to drill and tap a hole for that grub screw. And then it's interesting, these both say 25 on them, but they're obviously not identical except, well, I guess they could be identical except for the fact that this one's got this pin on it and this one's got this modification here with the grub screw. Well, since the way I have this stuff piled over there by the cellar door, where I brought it down the bulkhead, this was actually kind of more in the way, so I guess I'll focus on the, pause on the headstock and focus on the saddle. What it is, I got my little rolling cart already under there, so I roll that over here. Plus I figured this is another thing I can get cleaned up, and I could actually put that right on the bed of the lathe and have it out of the way. But I do want to get that cross slide off and the cross feed screw, that all apart, so I can take all that, get any swarf that's trapped out of there and clean it. And also inspect it, although I don't think there's really any issues with it. So I noticed that there are screws on the side here for the jib
to adjust the cross slide here. So I figure if I loosen those, that might help. It looks like there's 1, 2, 3, there's 4, there's 5 holes, but there's only 4 screws. So I don't know if one's missing or that hole is left empty by design. So much dirt, it's kind of hard to see them. Light's not so great over here either. It's stopping dead there, so that is not going to come off that way. Well, the crossfeed screw is definitely unscrewed from the nut underneath here because it's not moving anymore. That is moving easier, but it only gets that far and stops right there. So something underneath there is hitting. I think the Hendy was the same way. I think the Hendy, the slide had to come off in only one direction. It could only come off in one direction. All right, I'm gonna take this lock for the thread stop off. Let's see if we can go this way. That's stopping there too. Alright, maybe the cross feed has to come up first. I can't tell if that's just stopping there because of the keyway in the gear. I wonder why that turns and then gets easy. But it doesn't seem to be anything that would stop that from coming out this way. Oh, I remember now. The threads here that engage the nut underneath here, they can't go through the gear. So this has to go this way. So I've got to take this handle off. Eureka moment there from when I took the Hendy apart. It's been a while since I took that apart, but I remember now. What's going to happen is I'm going to take this handle off, take all this stuff off, unscrew this, it'll go out that way, and when it comes out, then that gear will be able to drop free. There's a little Woodruff key, collar, that's the little indicator, the little collar with the line on it, and now this. Just go and screw this way. Actually, if I slide this right back, that gear will probably drop out. Maybe not. Oh, the camera battery's dying, but I just woke up and remembered. Turns out underneath all this dirt it was hidden so I couldn't see it. There's a screw right here, and this screw holds that nut that's on the crossfeed captive to the crossfeed. So of course this slide can't come off until this is taken out. Now alright, now I had screwed the crossfeed back in, so I gotta unscrew this now. No, actually that shouldn't make a difference. Now it should come off. Should be free.